took a rare double overtime and everything they had to survive. Down 0-2 in the series against Milwaukee tonight was a much-needed win for the Toronto Raptors. Forget the edge of your seats. Fans were up on their feet tonight, outside and inside the arena. Our Greg Ross is live courtside tonight. Greg, that was an emotionally draining game for the fans.
I think that's the perfect way to describe it, Maribel. As you said, those fans were up for those 2 overtime periods in this game. Those fans were on their feet the entire time to watch this game. There was a lot of tension, a lot of nerves, because they knew just how important this game was for the Raptors. No team in NBA history has ever rebounded from a 3-0 deficit in a playoff series. So they felt like this was a must-win for their team, and the Raptors managed to get it done in front of the full house here at Scotiabank Arena. A 118-112 victory led by their leader, Kawhi Leonard. And not surprisingly, after this one, I was standing in Jurassic Park as the final seconds ticked off in that second overtime. And then we ran out to talk to some of those fans. And not surprising, a lot of them were shouting MVP, MVP. Here was their reaction immediately following that game.
I'm really fired up. That was an absolute emotional roller coaster, but we stuck with them the whole time. Kawhi came through. Raps came through.
Yes, Kawhi is back. Kawhi is back. MVP, MVP.
Oh, it was nerve-wracking. We couldn't stand it. The shirt was flying in the air.
Oh, it was crucial. This was the season tonight. Tonight was the season, and we did it, boys. We did it.
Just to put this game into perspective, Kawhi Leonard, 36 points for the Raptors, and he was clutch down the stretch in those 2 OT periods. He had 9 rebounds and he played more than 52 minutes. That is a career high for Kawhi Leonard. He has never played that many minutes in a basketball game, but he was not going to come off the court, especially when it mattered in this game. And Nick Nurse talked about just how important his star player was after this game tonight.
Yeah, I think first of all, you know, his defense was probably the biggest key of the game, right? I think he made not only did he just play good, right, but he made some huge plays with some steals and ripaways and breakaways that were, you know, offense was hard to come by there for both teams for a while. And anytime you can get a steal and a breakout, it's like, you know, a huge momentum play. But yeah, he was good. I think he's okay. That was a lot of minutes, but I think he's okay.
I think he's okay. That might be a little bit of an understatement. He was fantastic in this game for the Raptors tonight with their backs up against the wall. They managed to win their first game of this series. It's now 2-1. Milwaukee leading this going into Game 4 here in Toronto. The Raptors, Maribel, will have a chance to even this series up at 2 games apiece before going back to Milwaukee for Game 5. And there's no doubt these fans will be looking at that one as a must-win as well. They don't want to fall down 3-1 in this series.
And Greg, if they could do it with a big lead, I think we would all appreciate that in Game 4.
A little better for the nerves.
True. Thank you. Well, Greg talked about it. Kawhi Leonard pivotal in tonight's win, as he has been all season. But he will become a free agent this summer, which means he'll be free to leave. To prevent that from happening, Toronto fans are pulling out all the stops. Natalie Nanowski shows us the lengths they are going to.
Toronto basketball fans, young and old, are all rooting for one man.
Who's your favorite player on the Raptors?
Kawhi Leonard.
He's only been here a season, but the city has fallen for him hard. The evidence towering over Toronto, even commemorating last week's nail-biting shot against Philadelphia. That brought the Raptors to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in franchise history.
I feel pretty good, but a little nervous, as every Raptor fan does.
But there's more than just this series to worry about. Leonard's future is on the line. Fans are pulling out all the stops to entice him to stay. One condo developer is offering to give Leonard a multi-million-dollar penthouse for free. Not that he can't afford Toronto prices. And several restaurants are promising to feed him for life.
We came up with this campaign really just to show Kawhi that we want him to stay and want him to commit to Toronto long term.
Still, there hasn't been a peep from Leonard. He's a champ when it comes to deflecting questions about his future.
Where do you go from here?
I'm going to Toronto, Game 3.
Fans reading into every word. He did just pronounce Toronto like a local.
Toronto.
And he was spotted signing up for a Hudson's Bay card. Can you get any more Canadian?
I think he's staying, and I say that without hesitation. I think that the Raptors organization has done a great job in terms of hitting all the check boxes, all the items that would be ideal for a player of his caliber. I love that the fans are jumping on board. I mean, there's all types of different things that we can do to show him that we appreciate what he does.
The signs are everywhere that Toronto is all in for their superstar. And who could leave that behind? Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
As Lake Ontario water levels inch towards the peak levels in 2017, Toronto remains under a shoreline hazard warning. And the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority says that's not going away anytime soon.
Expect this to be a long-term situation. Again, the peak water level may only last a couple of weeks, but then even though water levels might continue to be elevated, not as high as they are at the peak, we could continue to see the risk of those windstorms that then bring the waves and those erosion impacts.
The water level is currently sitting at 75.8 meters rather. That's just 13 centimeters shy of the record 2 years ago. Flood and erosion hazards are possible along shoreline areas in hotspots like the beaches in the city's East End, Scarborough Bluffs, and the Toronto Islands. And with the forecast predicting rain tonight, levels could exceed the record high in 2017. So the forecast very key on this flood watch. So let's check in with Rachel Schutzen for how it's looking for Lake Ontario Region 2, Rachel.
And you know, I think one of the biggest concerns is really the inflow rate is a lot higher than the outflow rate, because remember, we're also monitoring what's happening now up and down the St. Lawrence. So yes, we are getting these rainy systems, but it really is what's happening throughout that watershed as well, and that's what we really need to monitor. The rain tonight, quite spotty. The winds right now in Toronto are pretty easy to deal with, about 20 kilometers an hour. As we get into tomorrow, though, those winds are going to be very gusty. Toronto should be staying mainly dry throughout the overnight. If you're up really early tomorrow, some portions around the GTA dealing with a light shower, a little bit of fog, a gray start to the holiday Monday, but then clearing out as we go into the afternoon. Now, there's not a huge temperature difference comparing what we'll feel in the morning to what we'll feel in the afternoon. Not a big drive or spike up in temperatures. 17 degrees tomorrow afternoon, but extremely windy. Some of those wind gusts will be at around 50, even 60 kilometers an hour. So if you're heading down to Ashbridges Bay, for example, for the fireworks tomorrow night, it will be dry, no rain, but watch out for those winds. And doing your own fireworks in windy conditions can be a little dangerous. Now, when I come back, I'll share that 7-day forecast with you. I know, signs of summer. We want to see more of them across the GTA.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit. Thanks, Rachel.
No problem.
A pedestrian is fighting for his life after a car and a minivan collided in Parkdale, sending the car slamming into the male victim.
It was like terrible to watch. Like he ran over, a shoe flew off his foot and his hat, and he was in really bad shape.
It happened at King and Jameson just before noon. The pedestrian was pinned beneath one of the vehicles before bystanders helped to free him. He was taken to a trauma center with life-threatening injuries. As the weather gets warmer, more cyclists will be out on the streets. With that, advocates are hoping people will be careful on their bikes and also know what to do should they get into a crash. Lisa Shing has more.
Whenever Kathleen Mackey gets on her bike, she's extra careful ever since her accident here at Jarvis and Wellesley a few years ago.
All of a sudden, this white van just started turning left into this building. And I didn't have time to stop. And so I just hit the van, kind of fell, caught myself.
The driver insisted she ran into him. After a few tries, she got his company to pay for damages.
It's your responsibility to seek all this out. No one's going to help you with that.
More recently, cyclist and cycling lawyer David Shellnut got this sprained wrist and fractured elbow when he was headed home from work on his bike at this intersection on Dundas This car cut him off.
I hit his vehicle and then I crashed onto the pavement in the middle of the intersection and immediately felt a sense of panic and fear. This is my first real getting hit by somebody.
He says he learned a few things all people should remember when hitting the road.
Take as much information from the scene as you can. Get pictures, witness information, the information of the driver, anything.
CBC News asked cyclists if they know what to do if they're in a crash. Most could name some steps Shellnut suggests.
Check for injuries first.
Call the cops or ambulance.
If there are other people around, they'd call.
I do have a number somewhere on my phone for a lawyer.
And the driver's insurance will cover medical treatment and compensation for lost wages. Last year, 4 cyclists died and 36 were seriously injured in Toronto. So far in 2019, no one riding a bike has been killed, according to Toronto police. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Protests were held across Alabama today, the latest on how the polarizing issue of abortion has soared to the top of the political agenda in the U.S. That's after the break. An intense debate on abortion in the U.S. escalated this weekend. A number of states have passed laws to restrict abortion, but none went as far as Alabama. Doctors there could face 99 years in prison for performing the procedure. It would be an effective ban. And as Lindsay Duncombe shows us, the backlash is building.
We've only just begun.
In 5 Alabama cities today, outrage, women and men speaking out against the state's new abortion law.
It has, I think, created a spark that we're going to see a political response to, as well as lawsuits and other forms of action.
Protesters especially incensed there's no exception for victims of rape and incest.
It is oppression of people who have gone through the horror of rape and incest. It is oppression of the poor. It is oppression of those who are not Caucasian.
U.S. President Donald Trump distanced himself from the most extreme measures today, tweeting, "I am strongly pro-life with 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and protecting the life of the mother," adding, "We must stick together and win for life in 2020, indicating perhaps the White House is concerned that new laws in several states could motivate the president's opponents as much as his supporters.
They've decided that the best way to erode abortion rights in this country is to chip away at it, as opposed to banning it 100%. They worry that a total ban will actually create the kind of backlash that we've seen this week.
Indeed, Democratic presidential candidates seem to compete for the toughest words to condemn the abortion restrictions and the president.
It is not an exaggeration to say that banning legal, medically assisted abortion and forcing women back into the arms of quacks will quite literally kill women.
And I hope America's women are paying attention, because President Trump has started a war on America's women, and if it's a fight he wants to have, it's a fight he's gonna have, and he's going to lose.
Many Americans, though, see both sides.
I do believe that life starts at conception, but I also hurt for women who are in that position to make that decision. It's just like so many complex issues. It's not a black or white for me and for a lot of people.
We've only just begun.
In legislatures, in courtrooms, and at the ballot box, this fight isn't going away. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
A small plane crash in Honduras has claimed the lives of a British Columbia man along with 4 Americans. Their flight had just taken off from the island of Roatan, a popular tourist attraction. As Briar Stewart explains, it was the Canadian who was at the controls.
The plane was airborne for only a few moments before plummeting into the sea, killing all 5 on board, including Patrick Forsyth, a Canadian pilot originally from British Columbia. The plane is completely destroyed, says this Honduran police officer. Its debris is all around. Earlier in the day, Forsyth had flown a separate group of tourists from the northern coast of Honduras to Roatan, an 80-kilometer trip, but he was late picking them up. He told passenger John Enman there had been mechanical problems.
So he said to me that he had a ignition wire from the ignition to the battery was broken. So he had immediately ordered the part. As soon as it got there, the mechanic worked on his plane.
After they all landed safely, Forsyth said goodbye to his passengers, then headed out again with the new group of tourists, crashing just moments later.
It just rocks you to the core, you know, just shocks you. Just that you think that 10 minutes later he's in the water dead.
In a statement, Forsyth's sister said their family, along with other families, have suffered a tremendous personal loss. They asked that sufficient time be given to the professionals investigating the accident to find the actual cause of the accident without speculation. Forsyth had been living in Honduras for years. He had planned to build a resort but had been accused by some indigenous groups of trying to develop their ancestral lands. In a statement in 2017, he said he had legally purchased the property and had been trying to reach an amicable resolution.
He was like a brother for me.
Adil Mendez says Forsyth helped him set up a medevac service in Honduras, and the pair had even been through an emergency landing together last year when the landing gear on the plane failed.
Patrick was the best friend I ever had. He was very professional. He was very responsible for every type of thing that he was planning to do.
Now his friends and family are mourning his death, while investigators are trying to piece together just what happened in those final moments. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
More than a month after the first polling booths opened, India's national election saw the last ballots cast today. Today was the 7th and final stage of voting. Hundreds of thousands of computerized machines will tabulate the result Thursday. Current Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to win. He visited Hindu shrines today. His campaign focused on security amid a standoff with Pakistan. Critics fear a Modi victory will encourage hardline Hindu nationalists. There's a live look at the Toronto skyline tonight. 16 degrees and partly cloudy right now. Will we get the summer temperatures we've been craving? Well, your long-range forecast weather forecast is next. The city celebrating the Raptors' Game 3 double overtime win tonight. But for the players, it isn't too soon to start looking ahead to Game 4. So let's go back out now to our Greg Ross, who's at Scotiabank Arena tonight. Greg, let's take a look at what worked in tonight's game and how we can carry that into crucial Game 4.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that the players are already thinking about that one. They're not going to be celebrating this victory for very long. But I think in terms of the things that work tonight, I think number one, you have to look at the Raptors' defense in this game. That's really been their bread and butter throughout these playoffs. And again, they were very good. In fact, they shut down Giannis Antetokounmpo in this game, holding him to just 12 points for Milwaukee. He also fouled out and wasn't available for that final overtime period in this game. So that was an important factor in this game for the Raptors. Defense was great, but I think another factor and an area where they've really lacked in the playoffs in other games so far is their bench. Their bench had stepped up in this game, particularly Norm Powell, who had a huge game for the Raptors off the bench, scoring 19 points. All told, they had 27 points off the bench in this game. So it was those secondary players who came in and were able to get the job done for the Raptors. And of course, Kawhi Leonard. We can't forget about just how great Kawhi Leonard was in this game with his 36 points. But Pascal Siakam afterwards talked about just how good those secondary players were for the Raptors tonight.
It means a lot, and you know, shout out to Norm just coming in, you know, and just bringing us energy and just giving everything, you know. Mark the same, Fred, Serge, those guys came in and, you know, and just fought the whole game. And you know, they calmed down. And we just got to, like, that's what we did all season, man. We've been a team all season, and we always had that mentality. And just being at this moment, you know, the highest stage, and having those guys step up and kind of like sticking together at the end there, when we could, you know, kind of got down on ourselves, but we didn't, and we fought through and And, we just glad that, we was able to get a victory.
A big relief for Raptors fans that they were able to get that victory and now pulled it within one game in this series. But again, a total team effort, but it's hard not to look at that performance by Kawhi Leonard with those 36 points, those 9 rebounds, and again, those clutch minutes down the stretch in those overtime frames where he was able to make some big steals, get some big baskets in this game, and lead the Raptors to this 118-112 victory here in Game 3. And now, as you say, Marivelle, these players are looking ahead to Game 4, and they know that they have a chance to even this series up, and then we'd be looking at a best of 3. So this is an important Game 4 for the Raptors here on home court. They have to do exactly what they did tonight. They have to defend home court if they want to get right back into this series.
Hopefully our heart rates will have slowed down by Tuesday. Thanks, Greg. Well, the sun was certainly shining on Toronto, the Raptors and Raptors fans. Let's go back out to Rachel for a sense of whether that sun's going to keep shining for the rest of the week.
It will. Monday looks pretty good, especially for those of you who are waiting to do the fireworks. People were out at Jurassic Park. They were getting soaked, but it was totally worth it with that wind. It was an exciting game. Now, as we focus in on the system here, the bulk of the rain is actually now off towards Ottawa. So we're slowly clearing from that system. If you're awake really early tomorrow morning in the GTA, you may see a couple showers, but then the sunshine is going to be out. Temperature-wise, as we look at tomorrow, not a big difference between Monday morning and then what we'll see into the afternoon. Temperatures are actually going to be falling as we go through the late afternoon and evening hours, and that's because the winds are going to be very strong tomorrow. So those northwesterly winds pick up. That's going to help drive the temperatures down. Feels a bit cooler down by the lake. So again, it's that struggle to get into summer. We still are feeling it, and I want to show you here the 7-day forecast. Take a look at this. Barrie. 13 degrees on Monday, 13 into Tuesday. Seasonal is about 19 degrees. So we are far off from seasonal. This is Barrie, for example. So it looks like as we go into next week, could be a good week to get up to the cottage country. Up into the 20s. Kitchener, same kind of story. 24 degrees as we end off next week. So long range, yes, we slowly are warming up, but it really has been that struggle to get into that summer kind of weather. A beautiful day, though, tomorrow in Mississauga for holiday Monday. Tuesday, back to work and school, 17 degrees, so just a little bit below seasonal. And Toronto, tomorrow night, if you will be at Ashbridges Bay celebrating with some of those fireworks, the good news is conditions will be dry. Grab the sweater, you're going to need it, and we're going to have to watch the winds because those winds are going to be quite gusty tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Have a great night, everyone.